Good evening, the televiewers of DBS Television, and thank you very much for joining us on another edition of your favorite talk show program, Viewpoint on DBS Television. Today, June the 1st, schools are set to resume for examination classes all over the national territory in Cameroon. And some of our reporters went to the field, we were told that the effervescence is not that seen, especially with students, pupils from the class 6 examination room. But then, given that lower seed, better still, Form 5, upper seed, and the baccalaureate students are already in schools going in for rehearsal in order to catch up for their examinations come towards the end of this month. Talking about that, or talking about school resumption, we have our guest with us in today's edition. We are talking about Ashu Akepe. He is an insurance and risk expert. Good evening to you, sir, and thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Good evening, Vanessa, and to you viewers, hello. It is a pleasure to be on this set for the first time.
You're welcome. A pleasure to have you. Mange Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers at home.
All right, I think that we should take a transition and we'll be right back for the first part of the show. It has to do with the yes or no questions and answers. And our first question for today: is there any hope that school resumption in Cameroon will continue smoothly? I begin with you, Sir Ashu. Yes or no?
Yes.
Mange Venashus?
I share the opposing view, no.
No. Question number 2: is the coronavirus a clear sign health education should be improved in our schools? Mange Venashus?
Yes.
Yes. And to you, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Question number 3: is the question of alternation of power a necessity in Cameroon? Mr. Ashu, I begin with you. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Mange Venashus, what do you say about that?
Yes, Vanessa, it is.
It is. And our last question for today: is the fire in the Douala Central Prison an eye-opener to the state of detention centers in Cameroon? Mange Venashus, what's your opinion?
Yes, it is.
Yes. And to you, sir?
No.
No, it is not. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your point of view. Stay tuned for the debate. Once more, welcome back and thank you very much for joining us on Viewpoint. I begin with you, Mr. Ashu. In the first question, we asked whether there is any hope school resumption in Cameroon will continue smoothly, given that examination classes have resumed today.
Vanessa, when the government gave a deadline saying the schools are going to resume for the 1st of June, so that the school year 2020 should come to an end, it wasn't for it to start and end the next week. Okay, we know the risks are there. The coronavirus is there. The number of infected cases are increasing every day. But what we should understand is that it is time we put in our subconscious mind that the face mask has come to stay. We have to use the face mask we are going to use it for a very long time now. So I, as a parent, I'm not so comfortable. I have to be very honest. I'm not so comfortable for children going to school at the moment where we are approaching the peak of the coronavirus. But the question is for how long? We don't know for how long this peak is going to stay. Okay? So I believe beginning only with the examination classes for this school year is a precaution in itself. So I'm very confident that it's going to an end. Now, at the end of it, the government is going to take stock, all the stakeholders in education are going to take stock so that we see how the October rendezvous for the general resumption will be.
All right, so you think that it's going to continue smoothly?
Yeah.
Mange Venashus, you are right of the opposing view that it's not possible. Schools are not going to resume smoothly or effectively.
Not resuming smoothly, but continuing smoothly. Here, when you look at the state of preparedness for this 1st of June resumption that we had today, you will see that we are living in we cannot completely say with certitude how things would look like, because schools are complaining of provision of basic necessity if they have to go through this last 2 months of the academic year. And if government schools are complaining, what of lay private schools? We know that if you take the educational landscape in Cameroon, the bulk lies with the lay private. And if this lay private, they do not have the needed assistance, we don't know what will happen. We are in Cameroon, and let us not try to shy away from the reality that we have. We are not going in for 1 week kind of course. We are going in for practically 8 weeks. And within this 8-week period, well, we don't want to be pessimistic, but we hope that things, if from the beginning we are not prepared, it is just difficult to conclude that in the course of the 2 weeks, of the 2 months, that the state will put in the necessary, because we're talking of the state in this case, we're in a crisis period, and the input of the state is no longer an option. It is a necessity. The state has to come in so that we round up the academic year. That's the option they took. Yes, so we are thinking that if the state, the way they have started, if things remain this way, we are not going to have an easy, 2 months catch-up period. Then things will be a bit hard. That's why
But Manga Venashus, we have had teachers here on the Viewpoint who told us that the lay private schools are actually preparing to receive back the students.
The question is not how much they have prepared. The question is, it is not whether you reach on the summit. The problem is, would you be able to remain on the summit? That's why I'm saying we have 8 weeks. This 8 week times 5 days is practically 40 days. To handle these 40 days, that is where it will be a bit difficult to make sure that on a daily basis our schools are disinfected on a daily basis, to make sure that schools have running water on a daily basis, schools have hand sanitizers on a daily basis, because we are dealing with children. We should not simply say that parents will send them from home. Yes, if we just take even council workers in all subdivisions, just take Douala 2 for example, would they be able to disinfect all the schools in Douala 2 subdivision in the evening? It will not be possible. Let us give even 2 days. Would they be able to disinfect all the schools? That is why we think that it is a very huge task. It's a huge task. Anyway, it is not unsurmountable, but then we think that if the states can double the effort, we can now talk of a smooth ride throughout these 8 weeks. But then, from the way things are from the beginning, it pushes one to be on the other side, seeing things a bit blur, not that clear.
All right, Mr. Ashu, you've been wanting to add something.
Yeah, I think Manga, you said one thing. It's difficult. I agree with you. But difficulties and impossibilities are not the same. That's why I said what is beginning today is a sort of preparatory grounds to see if come October 5th, school resumption is entitled to be operational.
Okay.
Disinfecting schools, I think that is just a modality for big cities. I don't see it happening in rural areas.
Exactly.
Because when I even watch the news, when they say the Minister of Sanitary say have given this quantity of hand sanitizer, I ask myself, would those hand sanitizer be not only for Yaoundé one?
Okay.
Yeah, there are certain measures that will only be effective in towns, and in the rural areas, people are going to use the means at their disposal. Talking about lay private, I want to say some of the lay private education are very well structured to run schools now, because in some of these private schools, the enrollment is minimal. In those private schools, call them reference schools, I don't want to mention them here. When there are classes that have 25 kids. Whereas in some government schools here in this city of Douala, there are classes where children sit on the floor. It's not an exaggeration. I know what I'm saying because I have been in that sector. Okay, so if the council, if you should say the council should take over the responsibility of disinfecting the schools every day, is going to fail. As you rightly say, going to fail. I think disinfecting the school is not a big deal. No. It's not a big deal. You just need to have a sprayer and the product. So each school can get, they have their cleaners. The cleaners can do that at the end of the school day. What the schools need, just the materials, the chemicals. And I don't know what great materials, chemicals even been needed. It should be a disinfectant. They just need to be diluted and sprayed at the end of each day. So we'll say council workers will not be possible. To be honest with you, it's division like Douala 3, Douala 5, Douala 4 that I know in terms of in education, the educational chart is really dense. Okay, so our wish, to be honest with you, will not be easy, but we must begin somewhere.
All right, Mr. Ashu, I remain with you. In question number 2, you think that the coronavirus has come as a clear sign for health education to be improved in our system, in our educational system. You know, back in those days, some of us, we used to be thought of when you go to the toilet, you come back, you need to wash your hands. Before you eat, you need to wash your hands. That has been regular, but then it wasn't that really intensified. And you think that, no, this is the time that our educational pedagogues should actually implement health education.
Coronavirus have come to touch our personal hygiene. Not just on personal hygiene or health education in school, but the health sector in general. Global health sector have been held hostage by coronavirus. We have seen so many learned professors giving counter ideas on. Up to this moment, there are people who still tell that coronavirus is not a virus. They will tell you it's a coagulating bacteria that is causing coagulation in the blood vessels. So you see that right up to the international level, there is not yet any consensus. So what you see now, our attitude, our behavior, we have automatically adopted hand washing regularly. I want to believe if this attitude had been in our midst for long, diseases like typhoid, diseases like diarrhea, diseases like cholera will not have a stay in our midst. Remember, as we are talking, last week there was an information that there was cholera already signaling in the Douala 2, precisely in the New Bell neighborhood. Those are highly dense neighborhoods where the hygiene situation is very poor, is below bad.
Below bad.
Yes, below bad. So it is a good thing. I just pray that all the enterprises, all the institutions that have instituted washing points at the threshold of your businesses will not take them off should coronavirus go tomorrow, because we still need them after this.
Thank you very much for your viewpoint, Mr. Ashu Akepe. Mangaven Ashus, you actually supporting our guest point tonight that it should be something that should be regular, or that should have been there and maintained.
Actually, when we talk of coronavirus, like Mr. Ashu was saying, you see that the health system of every country is actually challenged. Even super countries like America, Britain, France, there is a clear indication that the health sector was taken for granted. And as well, hygienic conditions, it's just telling us that we were inhygienic because we found it completely difficult. They keep reminding you, an adult, to wash your hands regularly. It's as if to say that you did not know that your hands were dirty. The dirt we are talking of is not the physical dirt that we see, but the dirt, we carry germs on our every moment from everywhere. And these are things that we used to take it for granted, and we lived with little or no consequences. But with coronavirus, it has reawakened that, that consciousness in us that we are living in the midst of bacteria and in the midst of germs, which we need to take care of it. When we talk of hygiene, it should not only be about in school. It should be something that should be in every home. Mr. Ashu was talking of enterprises that has installed washing buckets, or devices in front of their enterprises. Even in some homes they have, actually you find it there. How many times do we encourage our children, when you play, you wash your hands? How many times do we take for granted even the fact that before you eat something, you wash your hands? Even us adults, you grab something and before you know it, you start eating it without knowing whom did you greet, you checked, all these kind of things. We need to know that if we live a hygienic life, our health will be granted. Coronavirus is, if it were airborne, we would say that we cannot do away with because we have to breathe, although it is partially that, but then there are certain preliminary, certain basic hygienic conditions that if one respects them, I think that you can walk past coronavirus. So I think talking about hygienic, education, it should be a global kind of awareness for the human race to know that we need to be hygienic in the way we do. We live,
in the way we live. All right, that takes us to our third question for tonight. We're talking about the alternation of power and necessity in Cameroon. Mangavenashus, I remain with you. This in relation to what happened last week, where a veteran artist by name Charlotte Dipanda actually gave her viewpoint during an interview that she thinks that there is a need for a change of power. There is a need for youth to be given an opportunity to actually govern the country, and you said yes, it is a necessity right now in Cameroon.
Yes,
Why
Vanessa.
so?
Yes, when I listened to her views and the reactions that I saw on social media, I was asking myself, is Cameroon, are we pretending in Cameroon that there is a freedom of speech? If there is freedom of speech, do I have a right to share out what I think? To say that Cameroon, we need an order that we need to talk about alternating power in Cameroon. Some people look at it to be a taboo, look at it to be an offense to say that we need an alternation in power in Cameroon. I don't think so. Experience has proven that from 1982 right up to present, we have had one president. From independence till today, we've had two presidents in Cameroon. Whereas you look at some other countries, take US for example, from 1982 to present, we've had practically 5 presidents. If we take France for example, we have had practically 5 presidents. If we take Ghana for example, we've had practically 4 presidents. If you take next door Nigeria, we've had practically 4 presidents. I don't think that there is nothing wrong when we say that we should change power in Cameroon. The president of Cameroon is a human being. Is a human being. He came like he would go. And if somebody should decide to think that we should talk about alternating, changing power in Cameroon, I don't think there is anything wrong. And given the fact that he is a human being who has to phase out of existence, like you and I, if we don't start talking about alternation of power, now is that it will become a time bomb, because we are refusing to talk about something that is inevitable. No matter what we say, no matter how we make Paul Biya a god, he would one day somehow move phase out of the existence of human race. And if he has to go out, and we have not been talking about changing of power in Cameroon, we will certainly find ourselves in a situation that may lead us to chaos. We need to start preparing Cameroonians to know that this regime will have to give way for another. And in another way, when we talk of alternating power, experience has proven that once you alternate power, it brings about development. Because there is no human being who has a monopoly of knowledge. The way I do things will not be the way you do things. So if I'm here and I do it for this number of time, and you bring in another person, he will change the paradigm in which he sees things, a paradigm in which he rules the country. And from other countries that we have had, there are every proof, there are every indication that development follows once we alternate power. I don't think there is anything wrong when we start thinking that we can alternate power in Cameroon, unless we are afraid that alternating power may lead to other issues. Because if you live your life and they say tomorrow you are not supposed to stand here, a different person stands here, what is wrong if a different person stands here?
What is wrong?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your viewpoint, Mangavenashus. And Mr. Ashu, when her point of view actually came out all over the social media, we saw people were bullying each other. She had the right to say so. She never had the right to say so. But you still maintain your point that the question of alternation of power is a necessity in Cameroon.
Vanessa, I'll limit myself to Cameroon. Like Mange who cited examples of other countries. When you embrace a system of government called democracy, it is good to consume all the spices of democracy. Power alternation is an aspect of democracy, but it is not automatic. Okay? Yeah, it is a necessity for us in Cameroon, but it is not automatic, because for power to alternate, there are two possibilities. It is either we go through elections or we use a force. When you are using force, it is against the law. When you accept election, you must get prepared. So going to talking about Charlotte's view, it's her view, as you said, it's her view. And all those who maybe you're insulting her. They too, it is their view. Everybody's limited in his or her thinking. Everybody is limited. Those who are insulting her is because they are limited somewhere. She too is somewhere, thinks her differently. That is the beauty of freedom of expression. That is the beauty of freedom of expression. So alternation of power is not a problem. It's not a problem. But then, if you want it to happen, you have to work for it. Because he who has power is not given.
Not given.
Power is seized. And in a democratic or in a state of law, the only way you can seize power is through the ballot. So you prepare to oust the person who is sitting using the legal and the legitimate way. If not, you use the illegal and the illegitimate way. And whatever you use, you will still come back and look for legality and legitimacy. So alternation of power in a democratic society is not a taboo.
It's not a taboo.
Yeah.
So he was in her right place to express her point of view. Ladies,
as a citizen of the country, it is her right.
it is her right.
Nobody should refuse her that.
All right. Just a reminder that you're watching Viewpoint on Dbs television broadcast every day from Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Our last question for today is: the fire in the Douala Central Prison an eye-opener to the state of detention centers in Cameroon? And Mr. Ashu, you don't think that is an eye-opener? Looking at the state of our prisons, a prison or a cell that was supposed to habitate about 500,000 prisoners will now count 1,000. Is that normal? Your living conditions in it, is that correct?
It could have been an eye-opener if it was a surprise. You're giving your own statistics. Is it a surprise to the state, the stakeholders, or the population? None of us are surprised. It is not an eye-opener. It is simply telling us what we know. We know that the state of our prisons are not, just like the markets, are not the very best. I was not surprised when I heard there was a fire inside the New Bay prison. After having been visiting persons there, when you see the state, anything like that can happen. Those who manage, the stakeholders in prison administration, they know what is supposed to be done. They have projects, they themselves have voiced out project. There is a project for another prison, for Douala. There is a project that they have presented time and again.
Yet nothing has been done.
I don't know why nothing has yet been done. So, and I think worse things can happen like that. As you said, if you construct, just like where we are, if 10 of us were supposed to be in this room, in this studio, and 100 persons are forced to enter the studio, the living condition will not be the same. There can be an explosion. An explosion can be of any type. It can be a health explosion. It can be just a fire like the one we had there. It can be the collapse of the walls. It can be the stampede, the slightest movement that can lead to a stampede. Okay? When you visit the New Bay prison, Vanessa, when you visit the prison and come out, and you remain the same person again, it means that your heart is made up of lead, not stone. I mean lead. Because when you see you see how the condition under which human beings are living. I mean, even the prison administrators, where they are, the condition, their work, their offices. If you enter some of their offices, you ask yourself, how are these guys surviving in this place from 1st to the 30th? Is it because those who the hierarchy in the prison, they don't know the situation? They know. But the question we're always asking ourselves, why are we Cameroonians so heartless? Prison is not condemnation. Even if somebody has been given life sentence, he's still a human being. So long as he's still alive, he deserves the basic. But in our context, it's as if when you are sent to prison, it's for destruction.
For destruction.
Prisons are not, the alternative name for prison is a correction unit.
Correctional center or something.
Their prisons are supposed to be correctional unit where people should be reformed. It's a reformation centers. Where people, that is why they separate prisoners. Those with minor offenses, those with grievous offenses. They are separated. Minors are separated from adults because it is believed it is a reformation center. It is not a place for abandonment. It is not a place for destruction. It is not a place for settlers. Because we've heard how other prisoners will attack other prisoners. It seems as if that is the intention for our prisons in Cameroon, which is not supposed to be so. You need to go into a prison as a suspect, as a culprit, and while coming out, you become useful to the society. But when you look at it, how many people have left that prison and become useful to our society?
A rhetoric question. Mangaven Ashus, you are rather opposing Mr. Ashus' point tonight that it is an eye-opener to our Cameroonian society.
It is an eye-opener, actually, and I come back to the same point he was saying that when you look at the state of prisons that we have, it's not only in Douala. Go to Yaoundé, it's the same thing. And it's like all prisons in Cameroon, I may be fallacious, but then most of the prisons in Cameroon are congested. One, congested with people who are there. They are prisoners in Douala here, they don't know why they are in prison. They are prisoners in Douala here, they don't know, they don't have any document, but they are in prison. It's just enough that an influential person, either politically, economically, or whatever, just decides to say, Vanessa, you will become a prisoner from this evening. And it happens. And it happens. But that has made it in such a way that we have overcrowded prisons with such inhumane, living conditions. We take, for example, New Bail, where you're citing an example where there was a fire accident last week. That prison is a colonial prison that dates back as far as the 1930s. But we still have it today. A prison that was meant for 800 detainees having close to 5,000. How would you tell me that such a situation? I was even of the opinion that these things should happen. Incidents like this should happen, so that the agency at which we have to reform, because just that building that was consumed by fire, in less than 1 month has to be erected, even less than, because if not, there will be no way where they will keep the prisoners. And you remember, a prison is a situation, is an environment. They call it another country that has VIP prisoners and those who are suffering.
The classic ones.
Correct. So when you have the normal prisoner, you and I, who happens to go there without any background, you suffer. The VIPs, they are those who are living in well air-conditioned room. Some of them are living there, running out their affairs, their businesses out in town, receiving visitors when they want. We had a prisoner, a VIP prisoner, who got married in prison. And life continues. So tell me how we want to let people know that in Cameroon there are not two classes of citizens. Because some of them who are in prison as VIPs, they committed offenses that we're not even supposed to talk of them. Because they deprived you and I from living a normal life. They deprived Cameroonians from living a normal life. Yet, in prison, they are given VIP treatment. Then a simple prisoner who is in prison because he was hungry and stalled, because of that big man who was there, who deprived him from food, is suffering. That's the country that we have. And I think that incidents like what we had in Douala should repeat itself on a daily basis. It should happen in Yaoundé, it should happen in Tignéré, it should happen in Bamenda. In such cases, it will push the authorities to know that these are correctional centers, like Mr. Ashu was saying. We send people there to be reformed. Not sending them there, and then somebody comes out and said, I was tortured in prison, I will teach you.
I will teach you.
Because you sent me there, I did not know what I do, what I did. And when I'm coming out, I'm still coming out with that hatred in me, with that notion of revenging. Mm-hmm. And when I come out, I am a danger to the population more than I went there. So I would rather think that such cases should happen so that they should decongest the prisons and make the living conditions in this prison at least favorable. And once they are favorable, when somebody goes there, you will come out a changed person. And in that case, prisons will take their real essence. They will take their real, their role they were supposed to play in the society, and let it not be a punishment, a center to punish them. When the fire incident, the images that we had, if you see the number of inmates who were on the roof, I was asking myself, how would they come down? How did they get to where they are? And if the situation should continue, that the fire should not be controlled, within the time frame that we had, what would have become of them? And if they escaped, they become a danger to the society. So I think that such situations should happen. It is dangerous, yes, I know. But once they happen and they save, because a stitch in time should save 9. If they happen and they upgrade the living conditions in our prison, I think that prisoners would also try to live a kind of life that we will call that they will be near to human life, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you very much, Mangevin Ashus, for coming.
The pleasure is mine, Vanessa.
And to you, Mr. Ashu Akepe, an insurance and risks expert, it has been a pleasure having you. Hope you respond again to an invitation when appropriate.
Vanessa, the pleasure is always mine. When time and work schedule permits, one will always make it possible to be here. And before I go, just a word to parents and to viewers. We should know that COVID has come to stay. It's not something that we are going to part company with tomorrow. So people should, everybody should adopt the necessary measures to prevent the spread of COVID. We should put on our face masks, we should wash our faces, we should respect social distancing. We should do everything possible to avoid crowded places when necessary.
All right. Thank you very much for the advice to our televiewers.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you got the point of views of these gentlemen here in our studio, and that back home you were educated and informed in one way or the other. Schools have resumed today for examination classes, so parents do endeavor to prepare your children morally, psychologically, and material-wise for them to go back to school. That well said, do have a blessed week start, and stay tuned for programs continue on DBS Television.